Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host, Sean Francis. I am Brian Altunian on a special time today. Very excited about today's guest. We're going to be talking to one of 2022's top 10 CNN heroes. Hear her story about advocacy for not just those in the autism community, but all folks in the special needs community. It's going to be a fascinating conversation. This woman is fire. Cannot wait for you to hear this episode of Just Two Dads. Hey everybody, this is Brian Altunian. I'm here with Sean Francis, my co-host, my co-founder, my partner in Thrive, business partner. We've been doing this podcast now for over a year and a half. We are on episode number 120, and we are really excited to be talking to today's guest. Before we get to her, it's fascinating story. And by the way, she's going to blow your socks off too, because this woman is a woman of action. Before we get to her, I just want to thank everybody who's catching us on Facebook Live. Thank you for being a part of our family and our community. Please feel free to enter comments. We can throw some up on the screen if you want. If you're catching us after the fact on our YouTube channel, Just Two Dads, please subscribe and send to your friends and like the episodes that we've got, and also send us notes. Our email is wearejusttwodads@gmail.com. We are just two dads, all one word. We are just two dads. Send us comments, anything that you'd like us to talk about for future episodes. We are open to this is a community effort here, so we're supporting our community. In addition, if you're catching us on podcast outlets, thank you for listening in. I get notes all the time. Hey, I heard your podcast. I'm like, oh my God, that's so fantastic. So we've got broad reach, including our folks down in the U.S. Virgin Islands who are catching us live on WSTX AM radio as well. So thank you, everybody, for participating and being part of this conversation. For those people who serve the special needs community and are warriors and making a huge difference in our world. So without further ado, I'm excited to get in the conversation with our guest. Before we do, I'm going to throw it over to Sean Francis and give you a little background and jump into the conversation. Sean, you're looking dapper today, my friend. That's a word, by the way, dapper. You're like dapper.
Well, thank you very much. I'm feeling dapper, and along with the fact that I was able to open my eyes and see another day. Another reason, part of the reason why I'm feeling dapper is because of our guest today, who I'm looking at. Now, we are all advocates in some way, shape, or form. Those of us that are in the special needs community. There are those of us who are advocates by way of parenthood, because what would you not do other than advocate for your child? There are those who are advocates by choice because of profession. And then there is our guest today, who I think is just, at least to me, in a little bit of a different category. You know, they always say that we can't control what happens to us. What we can control is how we respond to it. One of the most freeing and liberating things that we can do, that literally nobody can take from you, is how you choose to go about your day and attitude. And when you hear what this woman has faced and the amount of lemonade that she has made out of her lemons, she is a CNN hero, top 10 hero. She is part of the women community with Senator Kimberly Lightford. She is a fellow with Erickson Institute. She's a co-host on 1390 AM Brunch Bunch. She's a state-appointed Autism Task Force member, state-appointed IDHS board member, state-appointed Department of Education for Disabled Children member, Department of Defense peer reviewer, and she's a leader in her community, and then some. And the only reason I'm left off some of the accolades is because I don't want to cut into the time and deny anybody else the presence of.
I got to get up earlier. I got to get up earlier in the day. Like, I don't even know. I got to get to work. I got more to do. It's making me look bad, Debra. Making me.
Yes, Debra Vines. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I've read about you guys a couple of times, and I was really impressed with your work. So I'm super excited to be in conversation with you guys today.
Thank you so much.
We are too, by the way.
Yes, and that statement you just made right there, but you heard about us. Don't let that nugget miss you. if you're out there trying to figure out what your purpose is and what it is you might want to do, or you're of the mind that I don't know if anybody wants to hear what I have to say, Brian and I started having conversations with each other as friends do, acknowledge that we're more vulnerable than most men, we're more vulnerable than dads who are parents to children with special needs, and we had the nerve to have start a podcast. And you don't know who you're going to reach in touch. When I got in touch with Debra and I introduced myself, her first response was, "Oh, I've heard of you guys. I know who you are." You never know who's listening. That's right. And so divinity in motion. So, you probably, Debra, to some extent, you acknowledge that you're a hero. CNN, acknowledges you as such. But I know there's part of you that feels like, I don't know about hero. I just do what I do and I am who I am. But all heroes, first of all, you are one though. And all heroes have superpowers. And the superpowers of a hero comes from that hero's origin. And your origin, your upbringing, everything that you've done, that reflects the way that you deal with the things that life gives you. So let's go backwards, right? From the CNN Hero Award, which is this past year, back to your roots, your family, your upbringing, and everything that led you to how you responded to the date of diagnosis for your son and where we are today.
Oh, wow. How much time do we have?
I'm not enough. Never enough.
Well, you know what? I think I want to just go back to when I recognized that I was a leader. And that was, I'm going to say maybe my freshman year, maybe 8th grade, freshman year of high school. I'm the second oldest of 5 children. My oldest brother is deceased. So when you're the oldest, and especially a girl, and you have younger sisters, and my mom, for the most part, she was a stay-at-home mom until I was about 12 years old. So after she went to work, I was given more duties like cooking and making sure that my sister's hair was combed and things like that. And then those leadership skills at home kind of ventured off into school. I started joining things like the Glee Club. And next thing I know, everything I was joining, people wanted to make sure I was the president because I guess you call it bossy, a leader, or however you want to put it. But I like being in charge. I do. But at the same time, with wanting to be in charge, I know how to step back and be led as well. So that's one of the things that I've learned. To be an effective leader, you have to know how to be led. I've always loved being a part of something. I've always, and I'm so glad that you asked me that question, because it gave me the opportunity to even think back on some things that I've done throughout my life that has created me to be the leader that I am today. Some of it was downfall, some of it that I had to pull myself back up. Some of it was just some great, amazing things like winning contests, modeling contests when I was younger, starting groups of girls that we just went out and just gave people things that were less fortunate than us. My mom made sure that we have volunteerism within us, because she would make us go to the senior citizens homes during Christmas time with church. And of course, I was very defiant. I didn't want to go, but I understand the concept of teaching your children volunteerism. And to this day, I'm always volunteering for something because it's ingrained in me. It's what I love to do. And I know it's because my mom, she's just like, okay, you better go. And I thank her for that. It's actually rounded me to be the woman that I am today, to be such a giver. So thank you, Mom, for that.
For sure.
Also, just playing sports and just being parts of teams, I think helps round you to be a better leader or a better, sometimes people take follower the wrong way, but someone has to be behind the leader, right? To get to the good of what you're doing. For instance,
for sure,
a background singer. Songs don't sound good most of the time unless you have that melody of background singers. But it's always that one background singer that you can hear over everybody. Like let's talk about the Jennifer Hudsons of the world. Let's talk about the Shaka Khan, who was a background singer. Let's talk about Jill Scott, who was a background singer. Barry Manilow was a background singer, but he sure was behind, and now they lead in things. So sometimes being behind does not mean that you're not valuable, right? It means that you're adding value.
For sure.
Luther Vandross was a background singer. Hey,
Luther Vandross, exactly.
Yeah.
And look, Sissy Houston was Luther Vandross' background singer, who is Whitney Houston's mom. So there we go.
Go figure.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's 8th grade and high school. So sticking on the chronological path, tell us, where let's cover the time frame in your life going from high school to becoming a mom.
Okay, well, I was a mom at 16. My oldest son now is 48. I was a mom at 16, and going back to my mom, she was one of these moms where I'm not going to be babysitting your kid. And I thank her for that. She said, I'm not going to give you time to get another one. So everywhere I went, my son went with me. I finished high school actually a year early. Because I did not want to be in school with having a kid, but I still stayed in school. I went to college. I didn't finish. I thought I wanted to be a nurse. I didn't. So I went to I went to cosmetology school, and I finished cosmetology school. And I ended up being a hairstylist for about 15 years, which a lot of people don't know. But I all through that time, I was always a model as well. I started modeling when I was about 12 years old, and so my modeling career actually was through that time span as well. And by the time I got in my 20s, I guess I was a hairstylist, and things just kind of started. My career was really booming as a hairstylist and even as a model. And I met my amazing late husband. I think I was maybe about 23, maybe 22. And I met him, and we were just having a wonderful life with my oldest son, who is now again Mark. And and we were having a great life. And then along came Jason.
Well, let me back up just a little bit and do two things. One, give you more props for it, what you just let out there that people might miss. Valuable information is often, caught and not taught. So you listen, you stated you became a mom at 16, right? And then, right, in part by your mom's guidance, making sure that she said she was going to keep you busy, but then also by your decision. You didn't just decide to finish high school. As a result of your decision, and more importantly, your action, you then finished high school earlier, right? You finished it early, and then you began college, and then you followed your heart. And like, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to be a nurse. I want to be, I want to be a cosmetologist. So there's something to be said for making a plan.
A hairstylist.
There's something to be said for making a plan, following through with it, being able to pivot and course correct and follow your heart as well. So yeah, I'm hoping that everybody's taking notes and they catch that. So then you're married and you have your second son, Jason, and then he's diagnosed at what age?
He was diagnosed at 18 months. I actually had Jason, I think, when I was 29. And I was 29. And he was diagnosed at 18 months. And right after Jason was diagnosed, I would say maybe about a year after that. No. It was during the time we was going through behavior problems with him, and there's a lot of stuff. And I would say maybe when he was about 18 months, maybe close to 2 years, is when my mental health started declining. As it relates to getting things for him, doing stuff for him. My life as I once knew it went away.
Completely.
Hairstylist, the Debra fashion model, the Debra being able to jump up and leave and go where I wanted to go, do what I wanted to do. Because mind you, again, our oldest son, he's a latchkey kid, straight A student, no problems, knew how to live in his own space, didn't have to worry about him being in trouble with anybody because he just didn't have that mindset, right? But once I had Jason, my life did a total flip-flop, and I became very depressed.
And I appreciate that, because now we're getting into some nitty-gritty and transparency too, because a lot of people feel that, okay, if you're a hero, what that means is,
life is perfect.
Life is perfect. I'm a picture of valor, and I don't share or I'm afraid or anything like that. So, two things. So the first one is, what were some of the delays or things that you saw that had you even suspect that something might be wrong? Because that's a little earlier, at least in most cases you hear around the age of 3 that the diagnosis takes place. Of course, that's years later, but anybody that is dealing with a diagnosis, the further back in history you go, or the further back in time, the more of a hero you need to be, the more of a warrior, because you have less resources and everything at your disposal. Absolutely. So what were some of the delays and things like that you saw that even give suspicion?
Well, firstly, Jason was a 24-week baby. I had him at 6 months, and the doctor said that he possibly would have some developmental issues. So again, our oldest son was full term, very healthy. So this was something very new to my husband and I.
And there's about 13 years difference between the two, yeah?
13 years. Matter of fact, let me
Gotcha.
just go back to that. When I
Yeah.
found that I was pregnant, we were actually sitting at our oldest son's high school graduation, and he was salutatorian of his class. And so we were just so proud sitting there, and we were saying in 4 more years he's going to be going to college. We're not going to have no kids. We're going to be glad
Yeah.
parents. And we were super just excited. And I think about a couple of weeks later, Mark and my husband were out playing basketball, and I just got really sick. My stomach was hurting so bad, and found out I was pregnant. I was 3 months pregnant 3 to 4 months pregnant when I found out, and then so leading to that, again. So after the birth of Jason, during the pregnancy, we knew that he would have some challenges. That's what the doctor said after he was born, early 6 months. They said that he would have some challenges. So we just started kind of watching for stuff, and then he just started growing, and it seemed like he was doing things on point to me. But at one time, I saw him. He was about maybe 7, 8 months old, and he just wasn't giving me the eye contact that typically happens with children. He wasn't meeting all the benchmarks for me. According to the doctor, he was meeting the benchmarks, but not for me as a mom. And so so we know. And then he just started screaming all the time. It was no laughing, it was no eye contact, it was no cooing, it was no all the babbling and things that the kids do. It was no happy times. Everything was just screaming and hollering all the time and just crying. And so we started taking him to the doctor to see what was going on. Because at this time, I don't think he was even walking. He was running. He went from crawling to running, and he would never just be still. So we took him to the doctor, and he said, oh, they just kept giving us all these different things. Oh, he was going to be developmental challenged. He was a preemie. He was just so many. And we took him one last, I think it was Rush Hospital. We took him there, and they said autism. Now, mind you, one of my good friends, Vanessa, she's a nurse, and she was working in ER. And she came to me one day and she said, Debra, I think Jason might have autism. I was like, well, what is that? She said, well, a man came into a young family came into the emergency room the other day, and they had a boy with him, and he looked just like Jason, just staring straight ahead, all the characteristics. And I was like, oh my God. And we took him to the doctor the next day, and the doctor said the word autism. Again, foreign word. Only thing I knew about autism was Rain Man. And Rain Man was a fully functioning man that could have reciprocal conversation. He just did quirky things, right?
Right.
Yeah. So,
because what year was this? For folks.
This is my question.
88, 89. It was 88, like the end of 88 going into 90.
Late 80s. Yeah. And so there was not the diagnosis of autism for children at that time was pretty low relative to today, for sure, right?
1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000.
1 in 1,000.
Wow.
And when we talk about even the diagnosis in Black and brown communities, it was even more than that.
Even less, yeah. Sure.
Our families in Black and brown communities, we weren't getting our children to the doctor, so they didn't have the data. So this was a nationwide report, evidence-based report from the CAC. But when you look at the statistics, even now, they're broken down in Black and brown communities, they're broken down in white communities, they're broken down in affluent communities and underserved communities. And then they come together with this number. But at that time, it was just nationwide. So we'll say nationwide autism diagnosis was 1 in 1,000. Now it's 1 in 48. So you figure 49 people in the room, the 49th one has autism. Somebody's going to have it. It might even be 2 or 3. But moving forward, I just threw everything that I had in me to getting Jason better. I quit my job as a stylist because, firstly, I didn't have a choice because we didn't have anyone to watch Jason. They didn't have all the great daycares that they have out now that service families with disabilities. They didn't have all the ABA services. ABA was just kind of coming on the rise in underserved communities then. So if they had it, we couldn't afford it, right? So all the services that I did find was out of my financial reach. A depression study, and I felt like I was not being productive mom. I felt like I was I guess you say a hamster on the wheel, just going round and round and round and not getting any results outside of the ones that I was getting at home with some things I was just teaching him just as having, I guess, mother wit. And I just kept going on and on. And again, just going down this slippery slope of depression. And
Yeah.
I found myself in a little bit more depressed than I should be. And my life just kind of spun out of control.
Isn't that interesting? I think that's one of the factors of being a parent of a child with special needs is people don't realize how much mental health crises we go through and what we deal with in addition to caring for our child and how our world changes. Not just caring, making sure that there's support and making sure that they have everything they need, but everything that we need too. That's all, my opinion, it's all become a very recent phenomenon that we're even addressing the needs of the parents of children with special needs.
The self-care and everything. Yeah. And
for sure.
the one thing that, go ahead, Debra, go ahead.
No, that's why when we started, and I know I'm jumping a little bit, but when we started, that was one of the first components that I wanted to work on, was making sure that the parent gets out everything that's within going on inside of them, all of their needs, not just needs for their children, but needs for them, someone to talk to, create relationships, create community. And that's what was missing for me.
Yeah. Well, it's two things there. It's difficult for a person that can't swim to save a drowning individual. And that's the reason, that analogy is the same reason why they tell you when you're on a plane, you put your oxygen mask on first. And so the one thing I know that you and I have had honest conversation about leading up to today is, one, your transparency. And we talked about the differences from a cultural standpoint for the special needs component. And when it comes to, things of that nature. So we know that in our Black and brown communities, especially with men, not as much with women, that the idea of therapy is not something that's necessarily embraced. So at that point in time, where were you with regard to receiving any kind of therapy or any kind of help or anything like that? And I don't know what the services are like in Illinois, but were you able to get anything? But were you left to kind of just figure it out on your own as best as you possibly could in terms of the depression?
I was left actually to figure it out the best I could, because I didn't even know I was depressed. Let's just say
that is so. You everything.
Yeah,
so you're just answering questions, but what you're doing in the manner in which you answer questions are just dropping nuggets. And again, like I said, I hope people that are catching them, because it can't be taught; it has to be caught. Do you hear what she said? For those of you that are listening, I'm asking her about dealing with the depression, and the first response you're giving me is that you didn't even know that you were depressed.
I didn't even know
you were depressed.
I thought that let me just say this. Everything that I was doing was from an insanity standpoint of view, as far as I'm concerned, because when you keep doing stuff and you getting bad results
over and over,
I was really acting a little insane. So I think that I'm not going to say I know that the depression tilted it off into insanity, because whenever a person uses drugs, you must be insane, because it's all over the news that you cannot, all over books and evidence-based stuff and everything. It's all that you can't use drugs and expect to have a successful life. Let's just say that.
Right.
You can't say that I'm going to use drugs recreationally, because it doesn't work, especially when you start talking about cocaine and heroin. There are drugs, even pills, even opioids in any sense of the matter. And I'm not going to even go into detail what the drug was, because that doesn't matter. But I did become addicted because I started using recreationally to just give me some balance and to give me some joy and to give me some, what I thought
escape.
That part, escape.
Yeah. Escape.
Again, let me go back to the conversation initially, that I did my whole life as I knew it went away. The glamour, the job, the finances, everything went away because of Jason. And not to say that he destroyed my life, because he didn't. He opened my eyes to a whole nother way of life that I didn't know how to deal with at the time.
You couldn't receive the gift that he was at that point in time, because you weren't prepared for that. Yeah,
I could not receive the gift. But once I got clean and received the gift, look at what happened.
It all opened up. Can I ask you, how did your husband deal with this?
My husband is an angel in heaven right now, but he was an angel on earth, because when I never believed in myself, he never let me go. He never left me. He knew I was on drugs. Every time that I went to jail and came home, he was right there waiting for me. Just an amazing person. I'm not going to say husband. He was an amazing person. And to know that he saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself, because he would tell me all the time, Debra, you're so smart. You're so brilliant. Look at what you've done with Jason already. And of course, I'd be like, I'm not doing nothing.
You know what I'm thinking right now? And it's funny, you at least shared with us before in our conversation, to prep for the show. We know that you became a widow, all these kind of things, but it never hit me. It never hit me. It never hit me before, like it is right now, which is that I really, really wish I got to know him.
Oh, he was amazing. He was. And when I started The Answer, I came home one day. I was working for Ceasefire, it's a violence prevention program. And I came home.
I'm familiar with Ceasefire, yeah.
Yeah, I came home from work one day and I said, hon, I don't want to work for nobody else anymore. I don't. I want to help families that going through the same thing we were going through. And I said primarily women, because he lived what we went through with the drug addiction, the incarceration. He went through it. So I said, let's work on starting a support group so families, they can talk about things they're going through at home, and we can guide them through the resources so that they can get the help, so they won't go down that slippery slope that I went down. So they won't even feel like that they don't belong, or that they are not enough, or they're not doing enough for their kid, because we go through a myriad of emotions.
And not everybody has a support system like you had with him. So let me ask you this. At this point, I'm assuming that when you have this epiphany, it's like, I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to create and I want to serve. At this point, I'm assuming you're probably clean. If you tell us how you got from, because there are people today, even outside of special needs, that are still battling their demons.
I have to give acknowledgement to, firstly, the DuPage County jail system. When I the last time I got arrested, which was June 24th, 2005. I was in my cell, and I remember having this conversation with God. I said, I am tired of the first thing that I think about in the morning is drugs. And before I go to bed at night is drugs. I said, whatever you have for me, just take that taste out of my mouth. I said, you have always taken care of Jason. You've taken care of James. So take care of me to be a better person. And I prayed. And, they call it jailhouse, jailhouse religion. That's what my husband used to call it, jailhouse religion. And that's another conversation. But when I woke up the next day in the cell, I guess it was called public defender, came to my cell and said, you're going to get a blessing if you want to take it. And I said, what is it? They said, well, it's a program called Drug Court. And they will send you to a rehab center, and you will be dropped, and you'll be monitored, and it'll still be considered jail for you, because it's not like you can just walk out the center and come back in. But let me tell you something. When DuPage County, I love DuPage County because they gave me the nugget to save my life. I was mandated to the Women's Treatment Center, which I still have relationships with some of my counselors that were there, and they are now closed. So, but the DuPage County got me to the Women's Treatment Center, and I treatment because I'd never been to treatment the entire time I used drugs. Never been to treatment. Never tried to quit. Never.
Had it been presented to you?
Of course.
Prior. Wow. Okay.
Well, no other entity. I would say no state entity or jail or anything had presented treatment to me. Of course, my husband was like, why don't you go to treatment? Well, I don't need to go to treatment. I'm good. I can do it. But I didn't want to quit. I didn't. That's why I said I was insane. Yeah. Everybody else is out there doing it. You're insane too. So get some help. But anyway, I was mandated to the Women's Treatment Center, and I stayed there almost a year and a half. And I learned so much about myself as to why I was doing the things I was doing, even just going back to your thought processes of a child. And you don't just wake up one day and say, oh, I want to be a drug addict. It does not happen like that. You do things recreationally, and then you keep doing things that feel good, and then you do things to mask. It's a process. So nobody's walking around saying, I'm happy I'm a drug addict. Nobody. And if they are extra insane because they
Absolutely.
themselves. But long story short, the Women's Treatment Center gave me a lifeline. They gave me education about me. And the best way to learn about something that you're doing that's irrational for your life is to learn about yourself first. And so I took those tools and I still use those tools to this day. And I don't say I'm in recovery, I'm in deliverance. You know, a lot of people, they say, I'm a recovering addict. I'm recovering. No, 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 no. I'm not recovering. Because when you're recovering, you got a Band-Aid on, and that Band-Aid can get pulled off, and it's an open sore. I'm not saying what I would never do again, because I never say never. But one thing is for sure and two is for certain. I know where I am in my heart today. I know how to use the tools to deviate my mind from even wanting certain things. Not to say, you know, all of our minds going in deviant places where they shouldn't go. But I tell you, a thought doesn't take but a second. It takes a second. But to carry out that thought is repercussions behind the thought. And I realized that today. And the blessings that God has bestowed me with right now, since the time that I said, yes, God, I want to change my life. And I call it my rebirth. And that's why I call it my deliverance, because that day, June 24th, 2005, was my deliverance.
Wow. And you know, we have a mentor that said to us not that long ago, you know, oftentimes when you're in that situation and then you have the opportunity to help other people, sometimes the thing that stops us from helping other people is, okay, well, who's going to listen to me? And, you know, why do my qualifications, you know, aren't going to give me a position of leadership in this particular case. With you, it's different, obviously, because you were born with leadership. But, you know, he said to us, you know, the things that we think disqualify us actually qualify us more to help people who were in that same situation.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've been through it and had transitioned into a place where, you know,
I was thinking of that because the other thing that he also did is he also shared with us is, you know, and he's growing up, his father had a drinking problem for the last, I don't know, maybe 30 years of his life. Those things were behind him. And when he got help, he asked him, are you never going to drink again? He goes, well, I'm not going to tell you I never will, but I'll tell you that I won't today. And that word in your deliverance just now, you said twice, today. So that means that, and I think you're conscious of it, but you might not even be. And it might be a natural thing, which is that you said never, but you're so focused on, here's what I'm doing today. And again, everything we do here is about bettering those that are within the sound of our voice and able to see us. And so if you think that you need to have a drug problem to relate to it, if you think that you need to be a member of the special needs community, which you will be if you live long enough anyway, just by old age.
Well, all of us have a special need. You know, you have one too.
We sure do.
We all have a special need.
We all do. And if you don't, you will be. But the bottom line is, everything we're going through here and we're talking about is universal, because anything you're trying to accomplish, first of all, everybody's got what I call holes within them, right? Things in which they're deficient. For sure. And they tend to fill those things with things that may not be good for them. It could be drink, it could be sex, it could be gambling, it could be somebody that just doesn't support you, whatever the case might be. And for other people, it's extreme. But the bottom line is, we do things that don't serve us or the people that we know each day. So anybody, no matter what you're facing, you know, you can go ahead and get out of that if you end up making a decision. And if you want to get way down the road where you've got 50 years in the future that you've lived this purposeful existence, that starts one day at a time. The smallest journey starts with one single step. So the fact that you've done that and taken that approach, that's everything.
God gets all the glory. He gets all the glory and the praise, all the glory and praise. You know, even as I move forward, and the reason why I guess I would say, because it's not that I ever kept it a secret, but the reason why I'm so transparent about it, because all of my life actually ended up being an open book. Last year I ran for trustee of Maywood, and you know, when you run for any type of political seat, anything that's
all in your business,
it's going to be dug up. And before I did that, I called my oldest son. I said, listen, you know, things are going to come out about me. Probably some of them are true, and then some added on 10. Right. Will probably be stretched a little bit, but you know, and some of it was kind of hurtful. I'm gonna tell you, I had some crying nights that I went to sleep. It's like, oh my God, why are people so mean? But then, you know, the Holy Spirit said, well, Twisted, you can tell your story better than anybody. And then I got the opportunity to do the TED Talk.
I was just going to say that what you're doing there, the lesson that you're given, which I hope, again, people are catching and not missing, is that you write your story better than anybody else. If you're hearing this conversation, make sure that you walk away with that. Don't let other people write your story. You're the author of your life.
Yeah. So when I
tell us about that.
do that,
TED Talk.
I did the TED Talk, and as I
Yeah.
was writing the TED Talk, I said, you know what? I can't leave this out without adding this. I can't leave this out without adding this. I said, forget it. Let's just go for it. But you know, the pretense of the TED Talk was not necessarily about drug usage or being an addict or anything. It was the whole pretense was special needs parents have needs too. That was the title. And there's so many parents that have children with disabilities. You know, I'm going to take out the word special needs. Let's say families that have children with disabilities, adult with disabilities. That if you're a caregiver of any type of disability, there are going to be times where you feel like I cannot do this anymore. There's going to be times where, okay, let me take that extra glass of wine. You find yourself waking up in the morning. You know what? You get the kids off to school. You're drinking a glass of wine. You are eating too much. You're shopping too much. You're gossiping too much. You're fornicating too much. You know, all these things that hit the endorphins of your brain that make you feel good. You look up and you're doing things too much to get away from that overwhelmness of having that caregiving moment, right? So I just encourage anyone that's in the sound of my voice that has a child living with a disability or adult with a disability. My son is 35. Make sure that you have something that you do just for you. Even if it's 15 minutes a day, make sure that you have this self-help, this self-care time. Go get your nails done, get your hair done. Those are things that are kind of givens now, self-help stuff, but know how to regulate your mind, because the mind is going to get you to a place to where it's a happiness. I do affirmations every morning, every single morning. I do, and when I found myself getting away from is when I saw my mind kind of declining a little bit and going in places where I shouldn't go. So I make sure I feed my mind every day with affirmations and the Word of God. I'm grounded with God. I belong to an amazing church, Jordan Temple Church, and I make sure I surround myself with people that are of love, love, giving, and serving. And I have three things that I guess you would call them the disclaimers for my life now. If I can't serve you, if you can't serve me, or if we can't serve together in some type of capacity, we can be friends, but it's not in my circle of my heart, because
there's limitations.
It's limitations now to my heart.
Yeah.
Limitations. Yeah. You can make sure your heart can go and your mind can go in a whole nother place. It's going to put you back in the place where you was once before that you don't want to be. And I just adapt that policy in everything that I do now.
Well, look, we're only here for a minute on this planet. It's a blink. So it is in your best interest to make sure that the show or the movie theater that is your life, everybody ain't in the VIP. Not everybody's in the front row. And that doesn't mean you love anybody less, because, you know, we're never going to be as young as we were when this or any other conversation began. Right. So we need to be very mindful of the time that we spend. So now tell us this, though, because you're so effortless in kind of, you know, what you do and your communication and everything. So it's very easy for people watching to be like, well, she went through her trials and tribulations. She just jumped up one day and did a TED Talk.
Oh, no.
No, and we know that's not the case. Tell us how that comes about, because somebody's listening going, I might like to do a TED Talk. There's somebody listening who thinks that they shouldn't because their story isn't worth telling, and we know they're wrong. How does that come about?
No, don't. You know what? I definitely respect the TED Talk platform, because it empowered me to even go further with the transparency of my story. And things happen. God is just so amazing, because things happen in divine order. And when the buzz from the TED Talks kind of started dwindling a little bit, then up comes the CNN Hero. And so when they heard my story, so firstly you have to be nominated. And when I was nominated, I still don't know what my girl, Lori Cobbins, or Dr. Lori Cobbins or Suzanne Le'Mion put in their letters, but they put something in there that had something to do with my transparency of being in deliverance of drugs. They put that in there, and just a lot of the amazing things that I was doing within the community. However, my advice to anyone that wants to do a TED Talk or be transparent about your life, nobody is comfortable. Everybody's not comfortable I guess being really transparent, they're not, and that's okay.
Right.
That's okay because it's definitely not for the swift. You have
Hmm.
you cannot have thin skin because you
Right.
be judged on your truth. I'm judged every single day, not just on my truth, but with things that I do within the Answer Incorporated based upon my past. You know, sometimes people don't
Hmm.
trust you because you do have a ex offender past or being a drug addict past. But at the same time, you know, I work to make sure that the families that we serve have what they need. And I know it's going to always be some bumps and bruises when you're doing the work of the Lord. I definitely
Hmm.
never compare myself to God or Jesus. But at the same time, when you're doing servitory work, and especially when it comes from your heart and soul, you're going to be judged and you're going to be ridiculed. So I just say, keep going.
You know,
Right.
it's
Good for
interesting
you.
because
It's
I
amazing.
told you, Brian and I met in financial services working there and, started an initiative to bring financial service and education to the special needs community. By the time I met Brian, I had spent years thinking to myself, man, if somebody questions my integrity or my intention, especially a special needs parent, I just don't know if I could take that. And then it hit me one day and I thought, look, there's people that disagree from a religious or spiritual standpoint as to what Jesus's role was. Some people think he's a prophet. If you're a Muslim, that's what you think. Some people think, some people are not Christians. Some people are agnostic. Some people are atheists, whatever the case is. But everybody, regardless of their faith, agrees that his intentions were the best. And despite his intentions, he was questioned to the point of death. So if I'm not Jesus and I dare to do anything remotely worthwhile, who am I to think that I'm not going to be questioned? So the only way you're not going to be questioned or challenged is if you spend time on your couch rooting for somebody else. And I'm not even judging you if that's what you do,
That's right.
but just know that path A gets you this, path B gets you that. And so that's something else. So tell us about the answer then. Because I mean, what you guys are doing is,
Well,
Well,
it's
tell us
amazing.
what you're doing so people understand, and people should go to your
well,
site at
the answer
theanswering.org.
incorporated, and so I go back to the conversation that I had with my husband when I said I want to quit my job. Well, I didn't
Yeah.
quit; they ran out of funding, so the program did not come back in. So I was like, I don't want to go work for anybody else. I want to do this non for profit. And I didn't know anything about non for profit. All I knew is I want to help people. And so
Mhm.
I talked to a couple of my friends that were in the non for profit world, and we came up with a name and we came up with a mission statement, which is that we provide support, resources, education, recreation, advocacy, social skills, and workforce development, not just for families living with autism, but developmental and intellectual disabilities. Because once we got started, we found that a lot of families were reaching out to us with children that had Down syndrome, ADD,
Mhm.
cerebral palsy, because Jason has cerebral palsy on one side of his body too. So I'm not going to say that we don't necessarily service the physical disabilities because we don't. That's a whole nother wheelhouse. So I leave
Mhm.
that to the people like Easter Seals and all of them. They have their niche.
Sure.
Our niche is autism, developmental, and intellectual. And so we started with just a support group, and we had this big open house, and we found that police officers, the police departments were excited about us starting. The legislators were excited about us starting. The community was excited about us starting our agency. Not to minimize any agencies that were within the Proviso Township, but we were the first grassroots organization that services families specifically with support groups, with tutoring programs, with exercise and dance programs within the
Mhm.
Proviso Township. I'm not going to say the Chicagoland area. Within the
Right.
Proviso Township, we were the first. So I'm just happy and I'm grateful about that because we service so many families with amazing outcomes, and we have a program that meets each and every Saturday at the Beverly Center in the great village of Broadview. That we service about 45 to 50 individuals from the age of 6 to 40 each and every Saturday. We have a Spectrum University program, which is a tutoring exercise program. I'm sorry, tutoring, social skills, and workforce development program. Then we have
Wow.
Music in Me, which is an exercise, dance, cooking, and nutrition program.
Mm. Mm.
Then
Mm.
we have Spectrum Socialite, which is a etiquette and sex education program specifically for girls and young women. because
That is fantastic.
our girls are targeted every single day, and not just girls with disabilities, girls across the board. So we want to make
Right.
sure that our girls know good touch, bad touch, inappropriate behavior that they might be doing, or someone might be doing towards them. But we're getting ready to open our program up for boys as well. We want to start with the girls because that's where my heart was first. But I see a lot of our boys need this training as well. So our next fiscal year, we'll be bringing our boys on as well. And
I want to.
we have one.
Go ahead.
We have one more program. It's called Spectrum Social, and so a lot of our children, they don't, and young adults and teens, they don't have friends. So we bring them together, maybe just 10 or 12 of them, and teach them how to interact socially. We have a professional that teaches them about, having relationships and things like that, because a lot of our kids, they want friends so bad that they end up,
and they don't get a chance.
End up with the wrong group. Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Is something you did there I want to touch on. Okay, if anybody's seen our past episodes, I'm a student as much as I am a co-host. So I will catch what people say and I will regurgitate it to make sure that things aren't getting by people. I've never done that as much as I'm doing it here today. So that means that you're just sprinkling value left and right. So the first thing is, if there's something that you dare to do in life, doesn't matter what it is, don't kid yourself into believing that your story doesn't have to be heard, or that there isn't an audience for it. And don't kid yourself into believing that you need to be ready, because Debra just explained to you she was not ready. The other thing she did, verbatim, forward and backward, is she knew her mission statement. And that was one of the longest ones I've ever heard, but you know it. So you need to decide when you're going to do so. What is it that I want to do? What do I stand for? What do we stand for? What is that mission statement?
And why?
Yeah, and exactly why.
And
then for those that are listening,
right?
Yeah, right. Matter of fact, that of all the lines that took place in Wakanda Forever, what I got from that, because I don't even remember what it was in response to, but at least twice in the film, there's a statement that's made or a question that's asked, and the response is, "Well, how is not half as important as why, is it?" Yeah. And that carries over to everything. The other thing, for our listeners that are listening in the Los Angeles area, you mentioned the Beverly Center. She's referring to Illinois, just so there's no confusion. No, don't be. I love learning that.
I want to give an acknowledgement to our supporters that we have currently right now. There's just so many. I mean, let's just start with Broadview, Illinois. The mayor of Broadview is Mayor Katrina Thompson. She is such a champion for us. Our leader, State Lead Senator Lightford, State Representative LaShawn Ford, what's his name? Chris Welch, State Representative Chris Welch, Speaker of the House, State Representative Chris Welch, and so many mayors, Mayor Booker, Mayor Harvey, all the mayors in Proviso Township, Tamburino, Serpico, they give us so much support. And we're not going to even forget the schools as well. We are in the schools. We have a bullying program as well called Bullying is Not the Answer. And it started with teaching the children about bullying against persons with disabilities. But then we found that we want to teach them about conflict resolution, about being a good person, about bullying at the workplace. I mean, it's just so many different components as it relates to bullying that we do each. And so we have that program in 4 different locations now. And the answer is rocking and rolling.
That is fantastic. That's
Love
fantastic.
It. And are you doing fundraising constantly? I mean, that's the challenge with nonprofits.
Constantly fundraising. If there's anyone out there in podcast land or Facebook Live land that would like to donate to our amazing organization to help us continue our mission each and every day, you can go to our website at theanswerinc.org. We actually have some great things coming up where we're going to be doing some deep dive fundraising for our annual walkathon, which is going to be May. I think it's the first Saturday of May, and I'm going to say I think that's either May the 6th or May the 4th. And we raise money to sponsor children and adults to horseback riding camp for an entire week. And this would be our, I believe, 13th year. So in 13 years, we sponsor so many children and adults, because a lot of our kids don't even get the opportunity to leave their home outside of going to their day programs or school. This is an overnight, entire week. And then for the parents that aren't comfortable with sending their kids away for an entire week. We will pay for their kid to go to a in cities camp. So we have a lot of stuff coming up. We have a pre-Valentine's Day sneaker ball coming up that we always fundraise for. We have parent meetings. We have so many things but just go to our website and you can just see everything.
And the website's beautiful, by the way. I mean, you do such a great job. All of your programs are up there. There's beautiful pictures and videos, and so people can go and find it. And I encourage everybody to do that.
One last thing, not one last thing, but I thought this just hit me as I'm looking at you guys. My husband started this amazing Just for Men group because he would go to meetings with me all the time, and he would say, "Where the dads at? Where the dads?" So he started this group called Just for Men, and it started with just a support group, but the fathers and not just simply fathers, but they were men family members that had family members with disabilities. And so they would come together, they would go to sports bars together and just had this great camaraderie with them. So we are working on getting that stronger. So if it's any fathers or men out there that have children with disabilities that would love to be a part of our group, you can call us at 708-296-5651, or you can shoot me an email directly at dvines@theanswerinc.org.
There you go.
Theanswer.org, folks, for sure. And I think that's a great idea. We have talked about putting a men's group together for quite some time. So if I can put that up on the site here, there you go. dvines@theanswer.org. So something that we definitely
INC. You forgot the INC.
Oh my gosh! See that, people. Well, here's your phone number: 708-296-5651. Hopefully, we got that one right. We're doing it on the fly.
That's okay.
Debra,
you did a job.
This has been a fabulous conversation. I can't believe our hour's almost up, as it always flies by, and we're just amazed by that. So at this point in the show, Sean usually asks a question of our guests. You may know that it's coming. There it is. Thank you so much, Sean Hall. Well, Sean Hall is our producer in Hawaii, so he'll correct me on occasion. So he just corrected that for us. So dvines@theanswerinc.org.
Yes.
So I'm going to throw it to Sean Francis to ask her a question of you, Debra. Hopefully I know this answer is going to be phenomenal for folks.
I will do that. And then this is a total inside joke, but it wasn't Sean Hall that actually put that correction up there. It was me.
Oh, was it you? All right. Good. Well, thanks, Sean Hall, anyways. Thank you, Sean Francis.
There's a complete inside joke there. But anyway, at this point in the show, as Brian mentioned, we asked the following question with the qualification, which is that, our ability to change the world is tied to, in some way, great or small, our ability or our willingness to change ourselves. With that said, give us just one example of a thought or belief that you once believed very strongly, but no longer believe to be true.
Oh, that's a lot. Not to tilt her into the negative lane, but I would really, when people say I love you, I want them to really mean it. When people say I want to help you, really mean that you want to help. I would love to see people be more intentional about what they say. I would love to see more people serving, because it doesn't have to be a big serve. It could be a small serve, and every single day in what we do. That's what I like to say.
Love that.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think we talk about it all the time. Sean usually quotes it. The service to others. Great Muhammad Ali, right? Service to others is the rent we pay for our place here on earth.
What I say all the time, one of my quotes is lead with love and love will follow.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Well, and here's the great thing about it is that usually when I sign off, my half of the sign off of our episodes, I do talk about that as we get here. So this is a perfect time for us to do that. You know what? Empathy and love is always the key to our next level of evolution here. So when you see somebody who has a situation that you may not understand, ask questions, but rather than being judgmental, right? Be empathetic. You never know what the person's going through. Not only is you may see a child that's going through having a meltdown or something, and your instinct is to criticize the parent. You never know what the parent is dealing with at that point. So be empathetic, have some empathy, understand that people are going through something that you may have no idea about, And if you look at the world through the lenses of love, the world is a better place. So always love and empathy.
I love
Yeah,
that.
thank you. And with that, Sean, I'm going to send it over to you to sign us off. And Deborah, thank you so much. This was such a fantastic conversation. So appreciative of this hour. I've made it a huge impact and direct impact on me in this past hour. Hopefully it did for other people as well. Sean, I'll throw it to you.
Thank you for having me.
Most definitely. And I'm looking forward to us hopefully being able to do some work in the future and add value to countless lives.
I'm coming to California hopefully in June.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Let us know.
I have a big announcement. I have a big announcement, but I can't do it yet. But
you can't do it yet. Okay. Good.
Okay.
The state of California. So
good.
Beautiful.
Big announcements are great. As always, I want to thank the women in my life without whom I would not be. That is my amazing mom, Jan, and my wife, Laura. And then remember again, we have special needs, but we've got needs, period. Everybody needs to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be loved. Everyone wants to know that they matter. And as much as some of us might fear death or departure, what we really fear more than anything else is what we've done with that time. So we really have more of a fear of not living a fulfilled life. We get what we give. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Make sure that you do so in the future and, share, like, subscribe. And wherever you are, as long as you're hearing this, you're watching us, you're listening, we love you.
We love you.
Leave with love.
Thank you, Deborah.